The great discoveries of psychosomatic medicine explain to us, this is of course having to do with human psychology, what happens to the emotions we suppress. And where do our suppressed needs go? What happens to our desires that we dare not express? The answer is common. They sink into the depths of our being, into the warehouses of our psyche. And when these warehouses are suffocatingly full, then our repressed emotions, needs, and desires break the doors of these warehouses and pour out either into our psychological state or into our body containing a hidden message. Do you remember when you had a nervous laughs and you managed to stifle them with difficulty before the one who should not notice you? Can you recall the times when you were overcome with panic and barely managed to keep your cool and hold back your screams? And those moments when crying rose like a lump into your throat, but you managed to swallow your tears or your protests? And we all have similar moments to remember, but what happens to the bursts of laughter that were suppressed and tears that did not flow and screams that were not heard? And if we take it even further, what happens to the curses that were not uttered, the desires that were not expressed, the complaints that were not spoken? Are they lost? For psychology, the answer is a resounding no. Physics is quick to defend by pointing out that nothing is lost in nature, regardless of whether we call it a tear, laughter, thought, or desire, light, heat, or electromagnetic. Everything can be considered energy. And the energy is never wasted, but it can mutate. This is how the great discoveries of psychosomatic medicine began, which confirms that emotions, needs, and desires that conflict within us or cannot find a way to be satisfied eventually become the secret conspirators that, together with the various disease factors, overwhelm our defense system. Although for a long time the conservative and materialistic wing of scientists refused to accept the direct relationship of all diseases with our mental state, the age-old empirical knowledge of the people did not entertain any doubt about the relationship of sorrow with disease. The angry stomach, shamans, ancient Asclepiads, and healers of other eras, even the ancient Greeks that had their healing centers knew of this, that mental states had a direct impact on the state of health and had already noticed that specific negative emotions tended to turn into equally specific diseases. But it took many centuries to systematize this knowledge. In fact, all diseases are nothing but reflections of our inner conflicts and unacknowledged desires. This point of view, from which the rigidity attached to the materialistic model of life doctors of earlier times would have turned away today, as now not only respected but also the object of systematic study by many research centers. Neurobiology and brain chemistry studies confirm that every emotion and every thought is translated into electrochemical changes that take place inside the body. There are thoughts that can cause a real electrochemical storm in our body. A thought of immediate life danger sends lightning alarm messages throughout the body, causing the heart to race, the digestive system to shut down, and the lungs to go into overdrive, the muscles to tighten, and the adrenaline to rush. A thought about someone calmer or even mundane like the ones we usually do does not have such a spectacular impact on the body, but it also leaves its electrical and chemical imprint on the body. What is certain is that the more intense the emotions, needs, and desires, especially when they remain unexpressed, the deeper the traces they leave in us. And if this lasts for a long time, sooner or later they will find a crack to slip through, to come out into the light, either as a neurosis or a physical illness. Deepak Chopra, in his book Quantum Theory, talks about happy and sad stomach, angry kidneys, and scared neck, explaining how our emotions permeate every organ, molecule, and cell of our body. But if doctors adopting the psychosomatic approach look for a mental factor behind illness, metaphysicians go even further. They see illness not as an outbreak, but as a relief to the soul that has finally found a way to express its deepest needs. The revolution of the devils? We often refuse to admit that we want love and care. Then the body takes over to act out our needs and sends us to bed and to be forced to the forced care of others that we can no longer refuse. It does not matter if this care is provided by a loved one or an unknown doctor and some nurses. In essence, our deepest desire to return to a state where we are free from care and left to someone else's care has been fulfilled. A kind of throwback to other more childish times where we abandon ourselves in the loving hands of an adult. From an internal point of view, illness is a way to ask for love, to get rid of responsibilities for a while, to avoid difficult situations, to claim and take revenge. This last one, as strange as it may seem, is very true. Often an illness comes as a punishment of ourselves or someone else to whom we direct the message, "Look what state you have brought me into." At the same time, the patient in his helplessness acquires a kind of power that he can fully exercise towards those who care of him. Since children, we have found that we control our loved ones rather more lying on bed of pain than standing and healthy. Mothers who may have turned to other interests return again to spend the night with the child at the child's head, just as adult children who, busy with their duties, may have seen little and who spend much longer hours with elderly parents when they are ill in a hospital bed. In short, illness is a way to ensure the more frequent presence of others near us, and is perhaps not the wisest way, but the way is the way out. Like the sinus that often breaks out because we have choked so many tears inside that they end up overflowing from the nose. Like cancer, which according to this approach appears in people who have always been willing, helpful, sacrificial to others, or furiously pursued perfection and self-sacrificing, serve their obligations and duties, either as servants of others or as perfectionists. They place themselves under rigid rules that did not allow them to stand up, ask for themselves, claim or say it can't be done. Take care of me, love me. Despite all that, something inside them longed for someone to take care of them too, somewhere to be left and supported and not just supported. If this demands of the psyche, repressed to the point where they are often not perceived, are not recognized and honored, then they will slip into the body in the form of a serious disease like cancer, will demand that the person himself did not dare to do it, to act very selfishly. As Rudiger Dahlke points out in his book, Illness is the Language of the Soul, by Fiery Wood Publications, with the explosion of the illness, a large part of the hidden demand of the ego is revealed. Coming to the surface causes great surprise in the patient's environment, because even the most peaceful people suddenly demand that everything revolves around them and around their illness. What the patient did not dare to express as his own opinion now raises from the shadows and demands his satisfaction. Even if the loved ones are delusioned, this attitude is a kind of therapy for the person himself, who finally claims the satisfaction of his own needs and rebels against his duties as a daughter or son, parent, employee, or supporter of others. We often observe that those who were once industrious, submissive, silent, patient, and so nice, full of altruism and willingness to help others, become capricious and demanding patients who dance others in the pan. In reality, what appears to us as strangeness and demandingness is nothing more than the outburst of their own repressed desires that they had subdued for years by giving priority to others. The hidden messages. Similar inner psychic mechanisms dictate the appearance of various forms of illness, each of which reveals deeper repressed states. Carolyn Myss, in her book Anatomy of the Spirit, and Louise Hay, in her own book, complement Dahlke in regard to the hidden mental factors which trigger health disorders and which seem like little plays or rituals that have taken their place, which we really need. And let's look at some of them. A cold, If at one time you wanted very much to cry and held back your tears by repressing your emotions, it's very likely that a few days later this internal state found an outlet in a severe cold where the eyes watered and the nose ran like a faucet, as they would like to run. Tears if you had allowed your sorrow to express itself. Suppressed sobs find an outlet in coughing, which as a physical expression has a similar manifestation. From a distance you can't tell if someone is jerking from sobbing or coughing. The word cold itself suggests something that made you cold inside and expresses the deeper need for your need for warmth and coziness. Huddled in warm clothes and fever are distinguished manifestations of this need, just as rubs are only substitutes for caress and contact your soul needs. Cough, it's a garment too. Under it are hidden words, opinions, protests, curses, or statements that we did not dare to utter. We preferred to swallow them, but they sat on our throats, so they suffocated us like the suffocating cough. The expectoration that often accompanies coughing has an aggressive character that indicates our repressed need to spit out certain situations or persons, an activity that the body undertakes to perform symbolically after we have not allowed ourselves to do so. Coughing is often a manifestation of irritation or stress when the person feels that they have swallowed too much for too long and have reached a point where they are choking. In this case, the body gives a signal in its own way to treat ourselves with more tenderness, to sweeten and soften it a little, a situation symbolically expressed by hot drinks and honey. Knee pains, they appear when something inside us feels crushed by the pressures of life but rebels. It no longer wants to submit and lower himself for the sake of others or a situation. He does not want to kneel before something or someone stronger. He needs to raise his stature or even show some intransigence, as a knee stiff from pain does. And at the same time, as this discomfort forces a person to often rest his foot on a stool, he symbolically stacks the legs and keeps others away, or thus expresses a symbolic kick to those who made him sit. Cold sores on the lips. It's associated with feelings of disgust or unacknowledged repressed desire that the self itself abhors. This is a double message, as one on the hand and the lips swell, attracting attention, at the same time emitting the away from me signal. What used to burn our lips, what made us bite our insides, acquires a physical manifestation reminiscent of severely bitten lips. The lesson here is to accept one's impure feelings or desires and forgive oneself for them. That which causes revulsion must be recognized. Cold sores can also indicate a person's need to deny excessive intimacy or punish themselves for allowing it. Hair loss. For the metaphysical tradition, hair loss corresponds in some way to the loss of feathers. It's as if we were made for others but submit to a more common fate. So whether it's occasional periods of hair loss or a generalized condition, it indicates inner conflict due to our submission to a choice that offers us safety but goes against our heart deeply wanted, what our heart deeply wanted and what we feared because it invoked risk. On the eve of a marriage, a permanent residence, or an acquisition of a fixed position, many people who have a traveling bird in them feel their wings fall. That is, they see their hair pulled out, unlike those who gladly give up certain freedom in order to feel safe. Ears. Ringing, pain, blocked ears, or limited hearing signal our resistance to certain commands or our refusal to hear and accept certain things. We no longer want to listen or obey. The glass is overflowing. The deepest need behind our ear problems is to withdraw into ourselves, to listen to what he has to say. In all this, there is also a signal that alerts us to listen to our intuition and our conscious, that whispering voice that is not heard when all our attention is focused on what the world is saying. The heart. Problems in the vital organ indicate strong emotion tensions, love, disappointments, refusal of forgiveness, guilt and self-blame, great emotional dependence, or on the contrary, alienation and closing off the heart, are directly related to its dysfunction. Extensive studies have proven that the flow of love and forgiveness prevent ischemic episodes, while on the contrary, their occurrence is facilitated when the expression of love is problematic. The lesson behind problems in the cardiovascular system always contains the same deeper request for heart-opening kindness and acceptance. The more unreserved, the better. First and foremost, to ourselves. And as our feet carry us, they are symbolic markers of the way we walk the path. This is our feet, was problems with our feet. Pains, calluses, difficulty in the joints, fractures, and bruises always indicate a self-objection to the direction we have taken. They may be resistance and warnings, or simply express a deeper reluctance about where we move through life. The request that the body expresses in this way is a need for a stop and to reassure our course. At best, we ask to slow down a bit, enjoy certain things more. Otherwise, we may be given a message to change course completely. Our hands. The hands represent how we manage our lives, our responsibilities, and our talents. Pain or broken hands indicate the reaction of the self because we do not express our full potential or do not wisely manage ourselves and our affairs. We have violated our boundaries, or do we not dare to open our arms and our arms? These are some of the questions that invite us to answer problems in the upper extremes. Shoulder and neck pain. They often indicate that we have taken on heavy burdens, more than we can bear, or that we have limited ourselves to an accepted submission. They state a kind of enslavement which has already reached a limit level. Pains in the shoulders do not allow us to raise our arms, and the neck blocks a wider area, showing a kind of stiffness that has come with time. The deepest request is to see other angles, to turn in other directions, and especially the one that can show us lighter, more cheerful self, and more willing to express its wider potential. Problems on the right or left side of the body. Esoteric tradition associates the left side of the body with emotion and the feminine dimension of being, and the right side with reason and the masculine dimension. Depending on which side of the body a problem manifests itself, it simultaneously shows whether the masculine and rational part of us is complaining or the feminine and emotional part. The head, since this is where most of the sensory organs are located, but also the brain is at the same time our headquarters and the gate through which the outside world passes into us, from headaches and migraines to serious diseases that manifest in the head area, our attitude towards those that concern us is revealed. Often, instead of banging our head against the wall, we just feel it ache from a severe headache. This is our body's way of sending a message that we are overloaded with too much stress, or that we have overloaded the circuits with something that requires a lot of energy and thought, without recognizing that we need to let things cool down a bit before making decisions. Diagnostic questions. Whatever symptoms appear in the body is definitely a message from our soul. And if we listen to it and respond accordingly, then the intensity of the symptom will decrease or even disappear completely, holistic healers confidently assert. Please leave your comments about this, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.